Arnold and Teresa Egley and their sons Marcel and Dan manage a 350 sow farrow to finish operation. They converted finishing pens to group gestation with pens that provide 22.5 square feet of space for each sow. Their average farrowing rate is 85%, with an average of 11.2 live born per litter. We asked Marcel why they decided to try group housing.
We decided to take a bit of a niche market, and the niche market asks for group housing, and we decided to try that and go ahead with it. And though that was the biggest reason, because of the housing regulations that they require to have.
So they converted a grower barn into group housing. Marcel says it was pretty easy to make the switch.
That loose sow barn was a grower barn, and full 14 feet was all slatted, and we simply had to take some of the partition walls away in the sides at the back of the pen, and they were just 2-foot slab pieces that we could just take out between the slats, and that then made us our gate at the back to create a bigger pen. And then all we did was lay some paper bags at the front of the pen so that we can just cement over the bags, and the cement was placed right over top of the slats, and with a small grade so that any urine or anything would just run to the back, so that it stays dry as quickly, or becomes dry if they do happen to dung or anything like that on the front. And so it was very little work. All the ventilation, all that stayed the same, and it maybe cost, with the labor, that maybe 10,000 maybe at the most, with all the cement and some of the stainless steel work and brackets and plastic penning, at the most, I would say.
The pen layout at the Egley farm allows for a lot of flexibility.
The pens are 8 feet wide and 14 feet long, and it's 112 square feet. We can make four of those pens as one pen. We can make them as 3 pens, as 2 pens, or every single one, depending on sow conformity, group size. We have that ability to do what is necessary to make it work for that group.
Marcel says if it's one big pen, it can accommodate from 15 to 20 sows, depending on their size.
If there are big sows, then we put in less, and if there are a lot of first parity sows, then you can maybe add a couple more. We also assume that maybe there will be one that you will find open, so that girl will come out, and as the sows get bigger throughout their gestation period, that automatically gives them some more room. Or you might have one that has an injury that has to be taken out, or needs special treatment.
The Egleys have several techniques for limiting aggression within the sow group. For example, they don't mix new sows into an existing group.
Yeah, once we establish that group, the group gets put away, and if there is nothing that happens to the sows, or we don't find any open, they do stay together right until they have to go into the farrowing pen. And we hope that's how it can stay, of course. We don't like mixing in any sows at a later time, because that won't go over well. At least it doesn't with us. Yeah.
Sows are grouped together according to size to minimize aggression.
Gives them all a little bit better chance to get at the feed when it is feeding time. And I think they tend to gain more of a consistent way than if you had different sizes, and you would end up with more uneven sows by the time they are due, which you don't want. And of course, try and keep the dates that they're due as close as possible, so you don't have to go and look over the whole barn where these sows are when it is time to put them into a farrowing crate.
Marcel says keeping the sows busy reduces aggression when they're first grouped together.
Well, we do add a bit of throw some feed onto the floor. Just first of all, it keeps the sows from coming back down through the alleyway, and it does get them busy right away, licking the floor. It makes them feel at home, we feel, and we'll try and do anything to minimize the stress that they might have when we put them away. And we might add a little bit of bedding just to let them root around, whether that is shavings or some straw, whatever what they like to chew on, and that gets them busy again.
Arnold Egley says briefly turning on the sprinkler system to wet the slats promotes good dunging habits when mixing a new group of sows into the pen.
When we group pigs together in a new pen, that's where we turn on the sprinkler system. A little bit harder at first, and then overnight we let it run just as a little tickle. That still keeps the pigs away from laying there overnight, and it keeps the dry part dry. And once they're drained, it's not needed anymore. They stay dry up here, and they do their work at the bottom and where they're supposed to.
The Egleys feed their sows manually, but they plan to change that in the future.
We would like to make sure that we can maybe do it as a more automatic system sometime, and but at the moment, to try out what works best for us, we are feeding it by hand to try and keep our costs down until we know exactly what we want to do.
The sows are fed once a day in the morning. They get 2 to 2.5 kilograms of feed, depending on their size. Marcel says that their experience with group housing so far has shown that it's practically maintenance-free.
So far, with this summer, we were lucky. It hasn't been too hot and too humid, so actually it has worked very well. We haven't had to scrape the pens at all, actually.
He says as well as low maintenance, a group housing barn is also easy to manage. Moving sows is a simple task.
If there's only 3 in the group, then usually they're fairly tame sows, and usually you can take them out by yourself. But sometimes if there's one that's a little bit nervous, it takes a second person. But usually there's 2 of us anyway, so there's less stress on the animal if there is 2 people.
We asked if they've noticed any changes with their sows in group housing.
I do feel the sows, they have the muscle, which they might not have if they were constantly in a stall. It's like any person that just sits in their lazy boy all day. I don't think that they would be quite as in good shape as someone who gets to walk around on a regular basis.
Marcel says that if he could make any changes, he'd like more windows in the barn. He'd also like a feeding system that feeds the sows several times a day. And Arnold would like to accommodate larger groups of sows.
And I'm tending to think maybe big corner shelters, big coverall shelters with straw, put them on straw and sort them with an automatic sorter, either on the due date or maybe by weight. Yeah, basically I think a big group would maybe work better than a small group. And for the one reason, you add 10-15 sows, you can take out 10-15 sows with no big fighting or stress. We want to put all the sows into loose housing, except for breeding, except for there's always a percentage of sows that need to be in a stall. The very thin one, very shy ones, as well as the very bossy ones. They belong in a small group or a small pen or in a single stall.
Dave and Tara Van Moorsel have a 300-sow farrow-to-finish operation. They converted finishing pens in a bank barn to group gestation for sows. In the pens, each sow has about 18 square feet of space. Their average farrowing rate is 83%, with 12.6 average live born per litter. Approximately 85% of Dave's gestating sows are kept in group housing. Dave's decision to switch to group gestation housing was purely an economic one. He needed space for his expanding sow herd and had an old bank barn on the property with small finishing pens that were not being used. The conversion was an inexpensive solution, and Dave was confident that group gestation housing can work well since his father had kept sows in group pens.